And before I tell you about our next story, I want you to have a look at these visuals. The people are seen donning protective gear. First responders are carrying a man pretending to be injured. These are drills that Ukraine is holding because it is worried about a catastrophic nuclear disaster. In focus is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It is the largest nuclear plant in Europe. For the last 2 weeks, Zaporizhzhia has been at grave risk. There has been fresh shelling close to the nuclear power plant. Both Ukraine and Russia have been blaming each other, and the UN nuclear watchdog has warned of a nuclear disaster. The United Nations Secretary General is currently in Ukraine. Yesterday, he called for a demilitarized zone around the nuclear power plant.
I remain gravely concerned about the unfolding situation in and around Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia. Common sense must prevail to avoid any actions that might endanger the physical integrity, safety or security of the nuclear plant, and the facility must not be used as part of any military operation. Instead, agreement is urgently needed to reestablish Zaporizhzhia as purely civilian infrastructure and to ensure the safety of the area.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also called on the United Nations to maintain security.
It's unacceptable that Russia puts all of us on the verge of a nuclear catastrophe of a global scale. We agreed with the United Nations General Secretary on a possible mission of the International Atomic Energy Agency to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in a legal way, via territory free from occupiers.
The nuclear power plant is home to 6 reactors. As of the 22nd of July, just 2 of its reactors were operating. It provides over a fifth of the total electricity generated in Ukraine. The plant has been on Russia's radar since the beginning of its invasion. In early March, Russian troops seized control of the plant. Special Russian military units guard the facility. However, Ukrainian staff continue to operate it. So clearly, there is a lot of tension. The UN nuclear watchdog says the staff is operating under stressful conditions. So if there is a nuclear accident, no one knows who will be dealing with it. Will it be the Russian advisors or the Ukrainian staff? Now, Russia says it wants to shut down the plant. Moscow allegedly told nuclear power plant workers to not go to work on Friday. This was amid concerns of a planned incident. It says Ukraine is preparing a provocation at the nuclear power plant.
On August 19, Kyiv's regime is preparing a resonant provocation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant during the General Secretary Antonio Guterres' visit to Ukraine, as a result of which Russia will be accused of creating a man-made catastrophe at this power plant.
Ukraine, on the other hand, calls it Russian propaganda. It says Russia plans to disconnect the nuclear plant's power blocks from the grid. And this could increase chances of a radiation disaster. Disconnecting the complex's generators from Ukraine's power system would be a huge problem. That means they cannot be used to keep the nuclear fuel cool. You see, shutting down a nuclear power plant is a complicated operation. It requires halting nuclear chain reactions while protecting the fuel from heating up. If Russia does force the plant off Ukraine's power system, it would be detrimental, threatening the safety of the entire station. Turning off the plant also piles pressure on Ukraine. It is already bracing for its most difficult winter since independence, so the country could be dealing with an energy shortage. Both Moscow and Kiev know the dangers of militarizing a nuclear plant or compromising the safety of a reactor. In fact, the nuclear power plant at Zaporizhzhia is located just 500 kilometers from Chernobyl, the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster. Joining me now, live from Washington, D.C., is John Eratz. He is the Policy Director of the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation in Washington. Thanks very much for being here with us. I want to begin by asking you for your assessment of the current situation. How grave are the risks at this point?
Anytime you have a military conflict going on in the vicinity of a nuclear power plant, there is an additional element of risk. Nuclear power plants are built to be significant. They are built to withstand certain kinds of incidents, but not high explosives and military action. So it is an extremely bad idea to be doing fighting in and around a nuclear plant, or to do what the Russians are doing and stationing their military forces in and among the reactor buildings.
Ukraine says Russia wants to disconnect the power plant's power blocks from the grid. Explain to us how this increases the chances of a radiation disaster.
It would depend on how they did it and if it was done properly. I would hope that they have nuclear engineers around who know what they're doing, who could maintain the proper safety measures, but that's really one of the elements that we don't know. It's uncertain exactly what the Russians are doing, what is propaganda, what is fact. The IAEA has not been able to have access to the plant. So there is no international oversight. None of the normal safeguards are in place. So the unknown adds an additional element of risk.
Indeed, a lot of unknown at this point, and we will be monitoring those developments very closely. Thanks very much for the moment, for being here.
You're very welcome.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.